And we are live, and I am praying that this is going to work on all, that this will be firing on all fronts here. So let's see. Hopefully, we are able to stream live in everywhere in the app, in the Facebook group, and on YouTube. So if you are on and you are able to let me know where you are watching from, that would be awesome. So welcome, welcome. I'm super excited. This is one of my favorite months of the year. There's so much incredible stuff going on. We talked about it yesterday in the live because we entered into the new month yesterday. And we will be, let's see, we are almost halfway through counting the Omer. We are here in that time between Passover and Pentecost. And hopefully, we are live now on Facebook. So I'm going to check really quick and see if that is happening. I hope so. I don't know. Yes. Yes. Okay, we are live. So happy to be here. We are wrapping up week number 3 already in counting the Omer. And Dan has to work today. He's wrapping up school, and it's been a very busy week for him. So I am solo today. And we're going to wrap up week 3 of counting of the Omer. So we're so happy that you guys have been along for the ride. And we love this time of the year. Like I was just saying, this is one of my favorite months on the Hebrew calendar. There's so much good stuff in there. If you didn't see the video from yesterday, we really broke it down, this new month of ER that we just entered into. But it definitely goes along with the counting of the Omer. So we're going to wrap up week 3 with this overview. Each week we want to dive in, kind of giving that overview. And so we always say, think of us as your guides through this incredibly sacred and important season. This is that season between Passover and Pentecost. And this is where we love to interact. We love to hear what you're learning. If there's any aha moments, at all, please share those with us. And we want to invite you to engage, not just here, but really in this time of counting the Omer. We are really excited and happy with how the app has come about. And there's places in the app that you can even put notes, kind of like a journal. There's a lot of things going on in there. So we're really happy to have you along. So we want to invite you to engage in that. So the significance of the Omer is at the start of the Omer, you come with a single offering. And by the end, when we get to Pentecost, because of your growth in this engagement, you have transformed into something more, and you have a double portion to offer. So incredible when you think of the visual of that. Okay, so God designed us in the garden to have it all. This was built on unity. He designed us to have in him. And we want to ask you in this moment, what does that look like for you? What does it look like in your life to have it all? We're so influenced by culture and social media and a worldview that is not God's perspective, right? It is not a God's worldview, to focus on things. And so things of the world, things that make you feel successful, things that you believe will show that you are successful in someone's eyes. So we want you to really take the time as you're engaging in this to see, what is God calling for you in this season in your life? And I feel like a time like this season is designed for us to slow down and literally practice relying on God and answer that question for yourself. Really, it's important. So the first week we talked about identity, how God brought his beloved people through the desert, out of bondage, and he took the time to teach him his nature. That's what he was doing when he pulled them out, what we're in the process of. And the central and deepest connection is that of a relationship between God and his people. And to really remember that he delivered the Israelites from Egypt in order to bring them to himself. And this is so central to our identity. It's so important that we have that understanding. and break free from anything that hinders that. So last week, the second week, we focused on the lessons learned by understanding the incredible battle of Jericho. That all happened last week, the 7 days. It was so incredible to think of, right? Aligning with that. And there's so much in this battle, right? The first battle that the Israelites would face as they were literally warring for their inheritance, their rightful destiny. It's incredible because we really have to think about, what is God dismantling in your life? What is he taking down, like the walls of Jericho, collapsing? What is that? I can tell you my experience that God desires you to live in freedom, to be fully alive. So he's about dismantling the survival systems that you have put in place that have gotten you where you are. And I'm here to tell you, they will not work where God is taking you. He's saying, I can't move you into this next place with these intact, because they will literally keep you in the desert like the Israelites. Fear, all of those things will keep you where you are. And the crazy things about our coping mechanisms is that they are so strong and loyal to us that they don't go away quietly. They don't. They don't go away quietly. And that brings me to what we're going to focus on today: how to navigate transition. So this month of ER is basically the month of transition. It's no coincidence at all. It's the picture of the journey from Egypt to Mount Sinai. It's a picture of leaving bondage, going into freedom, right? It's such an important transition, and it involved more than just a geological change. They weren't just moving from one place to another. It's in this transition time that God was bringing them into a whole new level of relationship with him. And in order to understand him, he would take this time to reveal his covenant secrets to them. So think about their mindset. They are slaves. They do what they're told. They get up at a certain time. They do all these things. And now he's taking them out to be free. How do you live in that freedom? So his secrets that he was showing them are these three secrets: that he is your healer, your provider, and your banner of victory over the enemy. That means you're not going to face off and be successful battling enemies without him. You can't. Some of us have gears and we can do a lot, and we've come a long way. We've gotten very far. But you and I both know that you come to the end of you and your strength. So this whole season between Passover and Pentecost, God is revealing his nature to them and how a partnership could be. So, like we love to do, we love to ask questions. Our question to you is, do you live trusting and knowing God as your healer, as your provider? And of course, we can be talking about healing physical things. I'm talking a lot about emotional things, things that limit our thinking and our ability to hear him and connect to him. And do you live knowing that you will have victory over your enemies with him? That's such an important question. I love, love, love that we are reading through Psalm 119. Every day we're taking a section of that in our counting of the Omer. And we're literally getting to witness David wrestling. He's wrestling with God with these very things, trusting God to deliver on all of these covenantal promises. So I have a question for you again. How do you wrestle with these things? How do you wrestle with trusting God in hard times, in times of testing? It's an important thing to look at, because our culture, even our church culture, teaches us to be self-reliant. We are filled with works-based viewpoints. We've become, what we achieve becomes the basis of our success, and it's glorified everywhere. Just scroll down Instagram or Facebook. It's all about achievement and comparison and all of those things. And I know for me, one of my biggest coping mechanisms is self-reliance. If I'm accomplishing and getting things done, it gives me an adrenaline, right? It gives me that adrenaline and it gives my mind a message. Everything's good. I'm getting things done. We're going to be fine, right? And as I've been counting the Omer, especially this year more than any other year, I can feel God dismantling this in my life. Now, there's absolutely nothing wrong with achievement, right? We want to have goals, we want to be focused on. We even know if you're on this call, you probably are someone like us who feels a calling on your life and you want to step into that calling. And so we there's nothing wrong with achieving, right? And we want to step boldly into where God is calling us. But it all comes down to what your motivation is. Because if the motivation is that your value depends upon it, then it quietly, carefully becomes an idol and it will take you out. It will. And if there's like an idea that you're only lovable or you're only valuable when you achieve fill in the blank, a certain amount of money, a certain weight, a certain job, a certain status, being married, being single, having kids, having 5 kids, whatever that is, achieving is the result that gets glorified. And God is incredible because he will meet us in the places to help heal our hearts in any ways that are stopped from connecting to him. He will. He will jump in. And sometimes he'll stop things from moving because we're not ready. We're not ready to step into that. And our focus this week, the third week, wrapping up the Omer, is to equip you with some tools when you're in a place of transition. Because you've got to grieve what you are leaving. Because if you don't, you will be stuck between two places. And I think we see this in the Israelites. How many times did they complain and want to go back? Because they knew that. They knew that bondage. They understood how to live in that. And we don't want to be stuck here because then we won't fully embrace where we're going. A transition brings conflicting feelings. And that is when we reach for our coping mechanisms, right? So whether it's to crank or to numb out or to isolate, we are aligning with the battle the Israelites had of leaving the bondage. At every turn, they faced a challenge and they wanted to go back. We can relate to that. I can relate so much to that. And God's third covenant promise was that he was the banner of victory over our enemies. He is calling us to show up, even if it doesn't make sense, like in the Battle of Jericho, when they were told to walk around it for 7 days. In what universe is this how you fight a battle? Seriously. In God's universe, he was having them practice reliance on him. Throw out everything you know. Don't listen to anything anybody's saying to you. Are you going to obey God? Are you going to listen? So he was having them practice that. And we felt like this time would be a great time to talk about some tools to help you grieve what you're leaving. So transition is change, and even change for the better is still change. Isn't that so interesting? We talk about grief is conflicting feelings caused by the end of a familiar pattern of behavior. So even when you're leaving something to something else, it's a change, it's a complete change in a pattern of behavior. And it brings up emotions that are connected to other times that you felt these different things. So first, we want to talk about the importance of naming your coping mechanism. Name it, recognize it. How has it served you? Is your coping mechanism to be busy? Do you recognize how it serves you? Is your coping mechanism to drink, to eat, to work out more, to do these things? Of course, anything in moderation is not a bad thing. We're talking about the things we use to not feel what we're feeling. Write it down, name it, recognize it. How does it serve you? And we even do a thing where we can name that and even thank it for being so loyal and being there, keeping you safe. It kept you safe when you didn't have any other way. But God is wanting to show you another way. So let it know that you don't need it anymore. And you want to grieve what you're leaving. Give yourself permission to feel that. So our unresolved grief, these conflicting emotions, they live in your mind because there's nowhere to put them. When you have all those feelings, you shove them down, they have nowhere to go. So they live here in your head and there's nowhere to go with them. And then your coping mechanisms take care of it. But now we're moving forward without them. So how do you process? Right? Unresolved grief and these communications are what keep us stuck. So what we need to do is deliver it. We need to speak it. We need to share it with someone who will hold space for us to be honest and not try to fix it. So expressing the feelings is the process. Isn't that interesting? It seems kind of simple, doesn't it? But we've been conditioned to not even know how we're feeling a lot of the time. That's why we have to make a concerted effort to stop and think about it and write it down. And then B, to articulate it to someone who's just going to hold space for us and not fix it or God forbid, judge us. Expressing the feelings is the process. And navigating that is how you do it differently than how you've done it in the past. And one of the great tools that we have, and I use this all the time, when I'm trying to connect to what my emotional truth is about something, is write down, what do you wish could have been different, better, or more? And when you start thinking about this, your emotional truths about the situation starts to come to the surface. Like, for instance, if you're transitioning into a new stage of life, like one of your kids is moving off to college. It is a huge transition and there's so much to do. A wedding, any of these big life monumental moments, right? There's so much to do to focus and prepare that it's easy to keep busy and not feel your feelings about it. But when you take the time to write down, what do I wish could have been different, better, or more about this? You'll discover feelings in there. You'll discover, I wish I would have had more time. I wish we could have done this before. And it's not about, like fixing those things. It's just giving yourself permission to say them out loud so they no longer live in here. Also, an important thing to do after you've done that is releasing lost hopes, dreams, and expectations, where you're releasing that. You're releasing yourself, coming into a place of peace about this time and this transition. It's an incredible thing because getting emotionally clear is the foundation of healthy attachment because it begins with a healthy connection to yourself. It's so interesting because when we have all this undelivered stuff, we end up saying things to ourselves that is negative, usually. I can't believe you did this. I can't believe you dropped the ball. You should have, right? All these negative things start bombarding us. And the process that I'm sharing with you helps you to get those things out. And you'll notice that those negative critical voices are not there. Definitely not to the degree that they have been. So when you're able to share these thoughts with a human that is safe and supportive, you are experiencing the second part of having an integration. So when you're recalling and writing things down, you're using your left brain. It's a left brain exercise. When you are able to share with a human being that is there with you, that is holding space for you, that's a right brain exercise. It's human connection. And the process of this is what helps rebuild. There's an integration that's happening, and that's how healing happens. It's amazing. And what happens is you start to heal in your own self, in your own mind. Have you ever felt so scattered and you're struggling with so much that you can't even focus? Well, this is bringing integration. And this is the opposite of fragmentation, right? The enemy wants us to be fragmented, wants us to stay stuck in our feelings, believing that we really If we say these things, what are people going to think? Or, whatever goes on in your mind. And it wants you to stay stuck in that. And that's fragmentation. It wants you to stay that way. So using our coping mechanisms have fooled us into thinking that we're okay. And ultimately, what we're doing is fragmenting our minds. And honestly, what this state leads us to is distrust. Distrust people. You just kind of pull back and you're just like, I don't want to let anyone in. I don't want to do anything. And distrust to yourself and especially to God. It's very hard to stay connected when you're hurting and you're confused and you don't trust. So, do you see the importance of understanding who God is and the significance of a season like this when we're literally partnering with Him to break down any strongholds that keep us from living in alignment with His covenant promises? This past week in the Omer, we focused on these are some of the topics in this week. It was amazing. I just was writing these down. So it started with a new beginning, protection, authority, deliverance, release, then a new direction, love. And I'm pretty sure yesterday's was victory, which I think is amazing, corresponding with, falling down of Jericho and stepping into this season. So powerful. I hope you guys have been able to really plug into the Omer and really let it speak to your heart because there's so much in it. And every day we've been sharing this passage from Psalm 67. And I thought it would be cool to read this, it says, God be gracious to us and bless us. May He make His face shine toward us so that your way may be known on earth, your salvation among all nations. Let the peoples give thanks to you. God, let the peoples give thanks, all of them. Let the nations be glad and shout for joy, for you will judge the people fairly and guide the nations on earth. Let the peoples give thanks to you, God, the peoples, all of them. The earth has yielded its harvest. May God, our God, bless us. Wow, what an incredible reminder that we are in a battle against our own thoughts, beliefs, and trauma. And the only way out, the only way we're going to have victory is to partner with God, His Spirit. And it's so important to have people in our lives to overcome this faithlessness. Because when we are faithless, we become hopeless. We don't want to live in that way. It's not a good place to be. And if you are in a state of that, please reach out. Please reach out and join us. Plug in, really. And I can't even tell you how much learning to grieve something has really transformed my emotional health. The tools of grief recovery are exceptional in doing just this because you have to grieve what you are leaving or you will be stuck between the two places. I think it makes sense. It's interesting. And I know I've shared this before, but when we were moving from California to Texas, it was a really hard move for me. And I used the tools to graph my home in California and graph my whole, I had a church family. I had a business of clients that I had been doing for almost 30 years when I moved. We had relationships, obviously, family. And man, there was so much there that I could not release. And when I did these tools and I graphed that house, which ended up being that season of my life, I can't even tell you what happened. The freedom that I felt by getting emotionally complete was what helped me embrace fully this new chapter in this new season of us moving to Texas. I couldn't believe how I was amazed, and I was like, why are you amazed? This has worked in so many different areas. And so we are so excited to be able to help process with those tools. And this year, we have added this process into our Inspired Life coaching. Every month we practice this. We meet on the first Thursday night and we get complete with the previous month. We get to show up. We get to partner up with people. You get to be heard in a safe, incredible environment. And man, we take really seriously the idea that we want to continuously fight the battle of inertia, right? Fight the battle of going to our coping mechanisms, which keep us numb in the end, right? The bottom line is we don't want to live numb. We don't want to live in a comfortable, numb state where every week turns into every month, turns into years. We want to make the most of everything, of every month, of every minute. And that's why we do this. And that's what we love about the process of doing the coaching, the Inspired Life Group, our Inspired Lifers. We love getting to do that. So, connection, insight, aha moments, they all happen as a result of honest sharing and compassionate listening. And that is really our message here. We want to equip ourselves to live in freedom by providing these resources, these tools, and this support. So healing is the beginning of our journey, and we get to experience God's sanctification, right? Which sanctification can seem like a religious word. All that is that it's a process of becoming like Jesus. And it's not about being holy. It's not about being perfect. It's not about even being sinless. What we're wanting to imitate is Jesus's connection to his Father. He was so connected that there was nothing that could come between them. It was an unfaltering, what's other words? Unbreakable trust and faith that he had, a steadfast hope in God's timing, his plan, and his provision. So we are at the halfway point, almost like halfway through this week. Next week, we'll be at the halfway point of counting the Omer. And we cannot wait to continue as we build up to this culmination at Pentecost. So we would love to invite you to join us. It is not too late. If it's never too late, we're always open to have you join us for the coaching. If you do want to do that, there's a link. I'll put a link in the description for you to know. You can check out the benefits. We have a 7-day trial, even if you want to. The app is awesome. Hopefully this is streaming live in the app right now, but if not, it'll be there. It's always right there in the app. So you have it in your pocket, in your purse, anywhere you go. So we're adding stuff every day. So join us. Share with us what you're learning. What are the aha moments that you're having? How is God showing up? Oh my gosh, God is showing up so powerfully in my life right now to show me that I can rely on him. I can depend on him. I can trust in him. And woo, it's amazing. It's very exhilarating. So for now, we want to wish you Shabbat Shalom as we are ushering in the Sabbath on this beautiful Friday evening. This is a time of great transition as we are headed to incredible revelation. So we want to wish you guys a very blessed and happy weekend. And we will see you next week as we wrap up the 4th week of counting the Omer. Until then, shalom.